The FIA has just pulled a move that sent shockwaves through the Formula 1 community. They've gone ahead and quadrupled the maximum penalties they can dish out to F1 drivers for breaking the sporting code. This is a major game changer, and as you can imagine, it's got the F1 drivers and bigwigs in the sport seriously riled up. So how much are we talking about here? We will find out later on. As for how the F1 drivers are taking it, they're not thrilled to say the least. It's not just the drivers, key figures in the F1 world have also voiced their concerns and reactions to the news. Let's find out what they're saying. During the 2023 Qatar GP in Losail, something intense unfolded. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell had a collision as they entered turn 1. This collision was forceful enough to throw Hamilton's car into the gravel, causing severe damage to his right gear wheel and abruptly ending his race. While the race was going under the safety car due to this incident, Hamilton did something daring. He crossed a live racetrack from the outside of turn 1 to reach the pit lane on the inside. He did this just seconds before George Russell emerged from the pits. As a result, Hamilton was given his first reprimand of the year 2023. On top of that, he was slapped with a hefty fine of €50,000. Now that might seem like a big deal, and it certainly is, but Hamilton had a stroke of luck here. You see, if this incident had occurred after the recent rule changes regarding fine penalties, things could have been much worse for him. Under these new rules, he might have faced a fine that's even 4 times the amount he was actually penalised, potentially making it €200,000. Now let's talk about the significant change in the world of F1 lines. Formula 1 drivers found themselves at the centre of a whirlwind of changes following the recent gathering of the FIA's World Motorsport Council in Geneva. During this meeting, several important matters were discussed, including the rules for F1 power units in 2026, allowances for tyre testing, and calendars for various motorsports championships, such as Formula E and the World Rally Championships. However, one of the most significant updates was related to the fines imposed on competitors in FIA-sanctioned events. Previously, the highest fine a driver could receive was €250,000. This amount had not been changed for at least 12 years, and it no longer matched the financial realities of modern motorsport. As a result, the FIA decided to raise the maximum fines across different categories. For Formula 1 drivers, the maximum fine was increased to a staggering €1 million. In other FIA World Championships like Formula E and the World Rally Championships, the new maximum fine is €750,000. And in other FIA Championships, including Formula 2 and Formula 3, it's €500,000. Fines in Formula 1 are used as penalties for various rule violations. These fines can range from as low as €100 for minor infractions like speeding in pit lanes to as high as the €50,000 fine that Lewis Hamilton received for crossing the live racetrack during the Qatar Grand Prix. The news of this €1 million maximum fine caught many F1 drivers by surprise. Some of them only learned about it during a press conference ahead of the United States Grand Prix, and their reactions were quite expressive. Max Verstappen, a 3-time world champion, found himself recalling a €50,000 fine from 2 years ago when he touched the rear wing of Hamilton's car in Parc Fermé after a sprint race in Brazil. He stated, "If touching a rear wing costs €50,000, I'm curious to know what warrants €1 million. Perhaps then we can consider sponsoring bottles of wine. I'll get ready." Kevin Magnussen called the decision ridiculous, and Daniel Ricciardo found it scary to think about drivers facing such huge fines. They are concerned about the massive penalties drivers could now be subjected to. Like many of his contemporaries, the first Fernando Alonso heard about this increase was during his media session at Austin. Alonso stated, "Sounds not appropriate. We are in a sport that already considers the very elite very closed. We're raising topics about sustainability in the environment, and we've been trying to do our part to become more accessible and a sport for everything like that. When you put these big numbers on, it doesn't seem right." Charles Leclerc expressed confusion about what could lead to a $1 million penalty. He also pointed out that some drivers in the sport earn less than these massive fine amounts, making the fine seem even more significant. George Russell shared his experience as a rookie in 2019, revealing that the costs of being an F1 driver, including flights, trainers and assistants, meaning he lost over 6 figures in that year. He speculated that nearly 40% of the drivers on the grid might earn less than the new maximum fine. Williams' driver Alex Albon also highlighted that many people have misconceptions about drivers' salaries, especially in the early years of their careers. He emphasized that these young racers don't make as much money as people might think. Beyond the basic cost, drivers are also required to pay a fee for the super license, a prerequisite for racing in F1. This fee amounts to $11,000 with an additional $2,200 for each point scored in a season. To put this in perspective, Max Verstappen's fee for the 454 points he earned in 2022 would have totaled a jaw-dropping $1,009,000. So where does all this money go? Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, two prominent figures in Formula 1, have raised some thought-provoking questions about where the substantial fines paid by drivers to the FIA ultimately end up. Lewis Hamilton expressed a desire for complete transparency in the allocation of these fines. He emphasized the need to ensure that 100% of the fine money contributes to meaningful causes. In his words, let's make sure 100% goes to a good cause. There's a lot of money in this whole industry, and there's a lot more that we need to do in terms of creating better accessibility, better diversity, and more opportunities for people who wouldn't normally have a chance to get into a sport like this. So many causes around the world. That's the only way they'll get that million from me. Hamilton has always been an advocate for this. When Hamilton was investigated for missing the end of the season FIA gala after his heartbreaking 2021 title loss, he agreed on a deal with new FIA president Mohammed Ben Sulayem to pay a €50,000 fine that was donated to support a student from a disadvantaged background in achieving an educational qualification in motorsport. Russell also emphasized the need for clarity and transparency, particularly regarding the reinvigoration of grassroots motorsport. He indicated that if the FIA believes that imposing €1 million fine can serve as a worthwhile deterrent and ultimately benefit the sport, drivers who earn substantial incomes might be willing to pay it. Nevertheless, the concept of such a substantial fine seemed astonishing. Russell noted that previous requests for information on the destinations of these fined proceeds had gone unanswered, underlining the necessity for more explicit communication from the FIA. In response, the FIA has sought to address these concerns. They have clarified that all fines collected from participants in their various championships are directed towards the overreaching goal of improving motorsport in its entirety. One of the primary purposes of these fine collections is to provide grants to national sporting bodies keen on promoting grassroots motorsport. For instance, if a nation aspires to foster a racing culture and wants to construct a new go-kart track, its national sporting body can seek financial assistance from the FIA. Furthermore, the revenue from fines contributes to educating and developing race officials globally, including opportunities to observe and learn best practices at World Championship level. The decision regarding what triggers a $1 million fine rests with the stewards responsible for overseeing an event. At the beginning of each year, these stewards establish a rough framework outlining the sporting and financial penalties applicable to specific offences. This framework is not strictly dictated in the regulations, meaning it offers room for interpretation and can adapt to the severity of individual incidents. Even if a $1 million fine may never actually be imposed, quadrupling the maximum fine signifies the FIA's commitment to making fines a more potent and costlier deterrent in the future. Now over to you, what's your thoughts about the new threshold for F1 drivers? Let us know in the comment section. That'll be all for today's video. Thanks for staying tuned, and please don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification bell so you can always get to watch more amazing videos like this. We'll see you in the next video.